Hello, everyone, and welcome to Surrogacy Australia's webinar. I'm your host, Anna Mackay, and my co-host, Kelsey, and her husband, Aaron, became parents to their daughter, Charlotte, in March 2024. Charlotte was carried by their surrogate, whom they had jointly known for 20 years. It worked first embryo transfer after 14 attempts in Kelsey. Charlotte was the first to be born under the NT Surrogacy Act in the NT in 2022. Welcome, Kelsey and Aaron. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Kelsey and Aaron, obviously at some point in time you needed a surrogate to have your family, but there was a long journey in the lead up to that. So take me back to the beginning and give us a bit of a snapshot of that journey that you've been on to eventually then need a surrogate.
Thank you very much for hosting us tonight. So Aaron and I have been together for 21 years now, and we first began trying in 2015. So we about, 10 and a bit years ago. We didn't know that there were any issues at all. And it got until, I think, early 2017 when we finally started getting medical help early 2017 and found out that there was issues with Aaron's sperm. You're quite common, low mobility and that low count numbers and that sort of thing. So we first started going to one of the free bulk build clinics down south. At the time, I can't remember what it's called, but it's now called Adora, and it was down in New South Wales. So we did quite a few transfers through those guys. We would travel down for all of our appointments and do the egg collections and everything down there, which was quite a big journey, but I had my beautiful Nana down there and we would always get to see her. So that was a massive bonus for us. We were lucky enough to get pregnant on our second transfer. And that unfortunately ended at, I think it was 8 or 9 weeks pregnant. All of our miscarriages have been missed miscarriages, which unfortunately is quite common with surrogacy because as a sorry, not surrogacy, in IVF, because you're using so many chemical
Medications.
hormones and stuff, synthetic hormones, that your body is so supportive of the pregnancy and doesn't realize that the embryo unfortunately has not survived. So I guess the biggest fear for us, I have a very big fear of ultrasounds. That was where we found at each of our 3 pregnancies we ended up having, we found out that the baby had no longer, had a heartbeat. So I guess that was the hardest thing for us, because you don't know you've miscarried until possibly a week or 2 weeks later. Your body hasn't started that process.
No.
Because of the synthetic hormones.
And so in that time, you're living with the hope and you're getting your hope up a little bit, but not too much. But you're also starting to think about your due date, that it could be, and all of those things. And I'd imagine then for that journey that you've been on, each ultrasound, and then even eventually into surrogacy, when your team got to that point of that many weeks in that ultrasound, you had that thought each time of, yeah, but is it really going to be there or not? So yeah, it's a lot for women to process.
Yeah, and that's a big part of, why, like you said, ongoing counselling is so important, especially for intended parents where there is a woman or somebody with a uterus who has had failed transfers or miscarriages, because you carry a lot of grief, a lot of trauma, and a lot of PTSD around that. So we did the second transfer ended in miscarriage. We had a DNC, which is a direct and cut curettage, I think it's called. I, of course, was in a hurry. Let's get it done so we can get on to the next transfer. Everything was a race, which you can't tell people slow down, but your body needs to try and relax a little bit, which is easier said than done.
Yes.
I think it was the third transfer took as well. So we were like, yep, this is easy. Everybody miscarries. That's, it's so common. I think it was 20% chance of miscarry. That's fine. Unfortunately, that one miscarried again. which again was a major shock. Again at 8 weeks, found out a week later at the ultrasound. Again, we'd never seen a ultrasound with a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And then it took again, I think, up until the 7th transfer. Again, they were starting to think, what's going on? Why wasn't I getting pregnant?
Mm.
And the 7th transfer took again. That one, I had a fair bit of bleeding going on, had gone to emergency, found out there was a subcortical or whatever hematoma, really common. But what we didn't realize at that time was that was actually an indication that there's something going on with my body as well. It wasn't just Aaron's sperm. So that one, we actually saw a heartbeat at 6 weeks or 7 weeks. We thought that's fantastic. This one's going to work. And then a few weeks later, we also did lose that one. That's when we started looking further into this. Why are we having recurrent miscarriages? Not going to get into that whole thing because there was a lot of trauma around that, hospital mistakes, doing, assessments and tests on your 3rd miscarriage. We decided to do that miscarriage at home rather than a DNC.
Yes.
Lots of trauma there, but anyway, we didn't get any answers. Did our 8th final transfer through our bulk build IVF clinic, didn't result in a pregnancy, and we were sort of done there with no answers as to what was going on. Why did I keep miscarrying? Is there something wrong with our embryos? We don't know. The bulk build clinic didn't do PGS testing, which is pre-implantation genetic testing, which is amazing if you can afford that. It does get rid of a lot of embryos that are not genetically viable, but of course we didn't have that option available. So we made the decision to change to our local clinic up here in the NT, which unfortunately wasn't bulk build, which meant we were going to start paying.
Yes.
But we did need to have answers by then as to why we kept miscarrying.
Yep. And I guess in that move to the new clinic, so you start to ask lots of questions. So the sperm was an initial issue, but then you keep getting older each time. So I'm not quite sure how old you were when you were doing egg collection. So I was wondering if egg age was becoming an issue, or also your ability to carry. Was it perhaps a multitude of issues in the end? Did you get answers ever?
Yes and no. That was the scariest thing. So we started this, I think I was 29 maybe, or 28. 28, I think, when we started. First egg collection in 2017 I was 30. So my AMH levels, showing my egg count was still good. So not having those answers, not being able to do PGS testing was the scariest factor. Are we wasting our time doing transfers on embryos that are not genetically viable? They can tell you, yes, your embryo is high quality, grade A or grade AAA down to a grade C, but it doesn't mean really anything at the end of the day, because there's embryos that have been graded as a C, very low grade, who have gone on to become beautiful children.
Yes.
So that's, you say that this is a science, IVF, but it's still very much so much unknown.
It is, yes.
Unknown. So we had high quality embryos every time, and we always have. So why aren't they taking? Why are we still miscarrying?
Yes.
So with this new fertility clinic up close to us, we were able to do further PGS testing, and we were also able to do further testing on myself. It's been a long time now, but there were a host of issues found with me, things like delayed hormones, high killer cells, high natural killer cells.
Yes.
And in the end, also after an MRI, I was diagnosed with adenomyosis.
Yes.
Which is not as common as endometriosis, not well known of. I hadn't heard of it. Instead, your lining growing on the outside of your uterus, like endo, some of your lining of your uterus is in your lining. So it explains painful periods and things like that, but it also explains implantation issues.
Yes.
And basically what we think was going on at the end of it was those 3 pregnancies that were managing to implant in my difficult lining were then possibly unattaching.
Yeah. Or didn't have the right environment to grow well.
Yeah. Even with the synthetic hormones, the lining, even though it was thick enough and we had the progesterone and we had all of the injections, there was just something going on with my lining that it was attaching each time in a spot that wasn't going to succeed. And that may have been that hematoma I had in the 3rd pregnancy may have been an indication that that pregnancy wasn't going to last because the attachment wasn't there.
Yes.
So from our 9th to our 14th transfer with this fertility clinic, we didn't get a single pregnancy.
No. And so you were trying different protocols or different tweaks each time round. A couple of questions that spring to mind is how many egg collections did you have to do? So therefore, how many embryos did you have in the freezer? And also, I guess looking back, I mean, the doctors ultimately at some point in time say, it's not going to happen, my dear. But what if you could go back and tell yourself sooner, either at that first clinic, or would you have drew the line in the sand earlier? So yes, how many egg collections and embryos first?
Yes, ask me that next question as well.
Yes.
So I think it was 6 egg collections.
Wow.
And all up, that was 14 transfers. The 15th one was our daughter into our surrogate, and we have another 7 on ice. So I don't know how many that is all up. I can't think off the top of my head.
Yes, but 6 egg collections. Wow, that's a lot to put your body through. Yeah.
Many more lost embryos. Like everyone who's done their research would know, with IVF, you lose more than half of your eggs and that sort of thing.
Few days, yeah.
In the first few days, that's just natural. But all of our embryos with the PGS testing came back full, top or very high quality.
Yeah.
So we knew there wasn't an issue with our embryos. We knew now that there was an issue with Aaron's sperm, which we could fix that with IVF. Especially when it got to the point of these last few, we were then, directly with the injections from Aaron's testicles, unfortunately, to get the freshest, best sperm.
Yeah.
But I was on the most, I got told all the time by the nurses, I was on the most complicated transfer cycles that they'd ever done.
Wow.
I would go through, I think for the last 3 or 4 transfers, I would go through synthetic menopause.
Yes.
Every time. Anyone who's done that, it's worth it. Everything is worth it. I will tell you that right now. To get your child at the end, I would do it all again. Heaven, end of the earth. But it was very, very hard to go through clinical menopause for a couple of months before every transfer.
Absolutely.
Really, really difficult. That would turn your cycle off and turn it back on. And that was to get around my adenomyosis.
Yes. Yes. It's funny because a very good surrogate friend of mine, Danny, she has adenomyosis, but she's got 3 kids herself and has been a surrogate once and potentially going again. But so for some, it can affect women in different ways, can't it?
And my surrogate has it too. They found that. Yep, they found that out through our original, things, and that really made me scared because they're saying, well, she's got the same issue as you.
Yes.
Do you think it's going to work? But she's had 3 children and highly fertile.
Yes. It's fascinating, isn't it? And so, yes, that working out, and clearly the fact that it worked first embryo transfer into your surrogate showed that the embryo quality was not the issue. It was the environment that your body was providing for that, it let you down there. So,
yeah. And so many fertility specialists tell you stress and cortisol don't affect, if you're stressed with your transfer, that's not going to affect it. But I'm maybe not at the start, but I think after 8 years of trying, your mental health, you are at such a bad spot that I truly, truly believe my body, with the cortisol going through my body, was definitely impacting my inability to get pregnant for those last half a dozen transfers.
Yeah.
But also towards the end of it, we were on such a full-on regime of all these chemicals and putting her into menopause that we also started to think, well, is it going to happen now? Because we're doing so much stuff that you shouldn't be doing. You're creating such a masterclass of an environment. Yeah, that we started to sort of wonder if it was going to work.
Yeah, we did everything. We did biopsies as well that got, of my lining that got sent to America, and found out my body was a few days behind in hormone production. So then we would even, do implants 2 days later than recommended. We did everything you could
Yes.
think of. Yeah, even the ink dye up into your fallopian tubes, everything. We didn't do a scratch because I didn't have endo. But I think that was pretty much the only thing we didn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
now,
that brings us to that next question then.
Yep.
Would you do anything differently, or tell your past self, or tell any women in similar situations going when to pause, when to stop? Or is it the type of thing that the desire and drive to be parents is you follow the doctor's orders as best you can because that's your hope?
yeah. If I had followed my original fertility doctor, we probably would have stopped trying on ourselves earlier than 14 transfers. We ended up getting, of course, onto the big, executive director of the fertility because we were such a complicated case. And he kept saying, I don't understand why this can't work. I really think it can work. And he really kept our hope alive,
Yeah.
which I think was a good thing. I do remember I saw therapists regularly. My mental health was very bad. I do remember being told quite a few years before we did surrogacy that we may need to look at surrogacy or embryo donation. And I was not ready. To me, the thought of not carrying a child was the worst news.
Mm.
Absolute worst thing that could have happened. And you mentioned that to me, and I'd fall into a panic attack. That was as bad as not having a child in my eyes.
Yes.
And if I hadn't have been through that, I wouldn't feel the same as I do now. But I have a friend of a friend who's going through this at the moment and having failed transfers. And there's no way in the world I would tell her to push for surrogacy now, because I know she cannot be there until she is there in her mind.
Interesting. Yes.
Know that you've done everything possible in your body wise. But that also means if you've been told by a fertility specialist that you can't do it and you should go and see someone, we weren't told that until much later. So I still thought that the fertility specialist is telling me there's a chance. I believe there's a chance.
Yes.
I had to get to that point of the fertility specialist telling me enough is enough.
Yeah.
You're killing yourself mentally. You're killing your body
Yes.
in a way.
Which we did get to a point where our IVF clinic did say we need to have a break now. We need you to stop, and we're gonna have a 3 month break, which was hell on earth for us, thinking, oh, we're running out of time, we're running out of time.
Yes.
They said you need to have a break so that you can just sort of settle and calm down and back and have a look. And I think we did that. And then when we went back into it all again and we kept going and going, trying all these things, we really had to be in the right place, because we would have kept going forever. And
Yes.
it wasn't a money thing.
Yeah. If surrogacy didn't open up to us, I think we'd still be trying. I don't know. Just for us, unfortunately, a biological child was our need, and my urge to carry was so strong until that changed all of a sudden after 14 transfers. Very bad mental health wise. I'd turned up to hospital a few times with your suicidal
Wow.
ideation and things like that. I was on a lot of medication. Aaron had developed situational depression. He'd never had depression in his life. We'd lost most of our friends. We hadn't had contact with some of our family because of our mental health. My niece was to my brother's daughter. She was 3 the day we met her for the first time, even though they lived up here with us. I couldn't see her. I couldn't have any of that. So my mental health and Aaron's mental health was at an all-time low. And I think it was lucky that the fertility specialist did say, look, you need to stop. You need to look at surrogacy now. In order to get my mind from, okay, the most important thing in my head is to get pregnant. All of a sudden, something switched my body went through a sort of grief process and I got really sick for quite a few weeks. And I think that was my body grieving. And then all of a sudden, my brain just went, hang on, the most important thing isn't being pregnant. The most important thing is a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden, I don't know how it happened, but it took 8 years for me to switch and go, hang on, we just want that child. We don't need 9 months of pregnancy. Yes, that's hard to lose. And yes, I still see pregnant women and, feel sad, but that's 9 months. This child is the rest of our life.
Well said.
So
Well
you
said.
can't tell anyone, to be ready for that. It's something, between you and your partner or you and your inner self and your fertility professional to say, look, this is when we need to stop.
Yes.
Yeah, and we would like to say, like, I'd love to say, I wish we started doing surrogacy 10 years ago, but
Or IVF,
yeah, but we didn't think we're going to have this, and it's all part of the journey as well. And you really do have to be ready for it. Like, I remember people mentioning it, and it infuriated us or made us angry when people mentioned it. Like, are you serious? Why would you say that?
Yeah.
When now it's like the amount of people we talk to daily about it and tell everybody how
Now,
it is.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
strange.
Everyone knows our story.
Well,
And
good.
And we're so proud that we did surrogacy, and we tell everybody, even strangers. But,
Yep.
10 years ago, I
Yeah.
couldn't even consider surrogacy.
No. Well, thank you for being brave and vulnerable and sharing with us the journey that you've been on and the depths of the dark that you've been to. And I've been to some similar ones, and we need to speak about it more because it's a reality of it all. As you say, you have to climb out of that pit yourself in some ways to be ready for it. So then ultimately that was your path. And so how did your surrogate come to be in your life? Because as I said in the introduction, you had a friendship there for 20 years, but I was conscious as well I wonder how many of your friends and family knew the detail and the enormity and the ins and outs of what you were going through. So did you then share in some ways with your friends and family that surrogacy is your path, and your surrogate then had been thinking about it? Tell us a bit of that.
We're really, really lucky in that regard. So we're up here in the NT where surrogacy was not legal at all until
Yes.
2022.
It's true.
So that was never even in our head because we knew we couldn't do it unless we physically packed up and moved states
Yes.
due to the legislation. But our surrogate, so we've known her since we were 18, I think.
Yeah.
Aaron went to school with her husband, and they got together not long after Aaron and I got together. And she's been a very close friend, and one of her daughters, who turns 18 on the weekend,
Wow.
she's our goddaughter.
Yes.
So we're a very close group, and she's been with me through the ins and outs. And she had just mentioned, I think it was 2 times, maybe a year apart, once when I was crying and upset or something. And she said, I would do that for you, or I would carry your baby for you. And
Yes.
this was before surrogacy was legal, before I was ready. And I actually sort of brushed it off because I think a lot of people, like you said earlier, a lot of people might mention it and it not be sincere.
Yes.
So I didn't take it as something serious. I just thought that's a lovely thing to say.
But we also
I've had a lot of
there.
people say it. Yeah.
We also weren't there yet, and that like it was early on. So I think you sort of brushed it off, and then
Like, oh yeah,
you
thank
just
you.
kept
Yeah.
going, oh, no, you're so lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think she'd said it twice, maybe 3 times. And then it wasn't until it got more serious, and it was 2021 that we were starting to sort of run out of hope, and I was getting very sick with my body. I was always sick and run down and full of anxiety and stress. And surrogacy was starting to get momentum up here, and we knew what the lady who was really sort of pushing for surrogacy up here, Rebecca, and we agreed to do an article because to sort of push for it before it went to legislation.
Yep.
We did an article on that to sort of say, come on, guys, come on, government, you need to prove this. There's people like us who are looking at it one day. And was it before? It must have been before that, or just before that, a few months before that, we decided to formally ask our surrogate
Yes.
if she was serious. And that was the scariest part, because we didn't know if she was serious and what that really means. So I'd actually printed off all the information so she knew exactly what she was putting herself up for. I didn't want her to say yes and then remove the offer later.
And
Yeah.
as a teacher, that was in a bonded folder with a cover and everything else.
You would appreciate that. Yes, it was
Prepared. Well
yeah,
prepared. Yes.
organized. And she probably didn't even open the folder and read.
But it was there if she needed it.
Had
Yeah.
to be there. And we took them out for dinner, and I needed a bit of liquid courage to say, look, we're formally asking, we've got 1 or 2 more transfers left that we're going to do with ourselves. But if it doesn't work, and if surrogacy gets legalized early next year, would you consider, doing this? And they said, of course. And we said,
I think they both laughed at us like we knew what this was for.
Yes.
we knew why you were taking us out to dinner, but we didn't know they'd discussed it together. No, they were so sure in themselves of offering it.
Yeah.
We didn't know that it actually wasn't a big deal for them.
Yep. It really is like dating, isn't it? Well, I'm really conscious of that, but I think it was needed, that we needed to do a lot of that backstory. And because there'll be many people listening tonight and to these recordings that will liken themselves, go, wow, your journey's similar to mine's in so many ways. I guess then usually we spend a long time talking about the actual journey, but so we might just do a bit more of a snapshot of the actual surrogacy journey in terms of then you've had the offer, you do a bit more dating, you have to do the counselling and legals, and then the pregnancy. Is there anything, I guess, that you'd like to mention or that was significant either in that lead up to the pregnancy or anything particularly challenging or that you're proud of the pregnancy journey? What springs to mind?
I guess our biggest concern going into the surrogacy was our friendship, the quality of our friendship and affecting that. We had really good counselling. Everything went smoothly. So from the moment it got approved, made legalized in the NT, we had already started things. We did the legal, the counselling, all of that was about 6 months. And then bam, we did the transfer, worked immediately. So all of those other things we had worried about didn't eventuate. Really important to have those conversations though, ask those difficult questions. And if there's red flags between your values and your surrogate's values, honestly, you need to work that out or not move ahead if you're not on the same page with those difficult things. The pregnancy was so much more smoother than I thought it would be. Both myself and my surrogate were privately terrified of the moment she would start showing.
Okay, yes.
Shared that with each other. And the moment I saw her at 12 weeks or 13 weeks already showing, I was beyond overjoyed because my baby was this far away from me,
Yes.
through
Good
her
point.
belly.
Yes.
And it was the most magical thing to see that baby growing, and all my fears went out the window. It was just that lack of control that you have as an intended mother through your friend or your surrogate, that you have already decided you trust them to carry your child. You need to keep that trust. You need to talk to your therapist through those things if they come up, and that lack of control you have, because your job as an intended parent is to support your surrogate. Your support to each other is in the background. You don't share that with your surrogate. You are there for your surrogate. And it was the birth, honestly, we're just so lucky that everything went smoothly, and the birth was perfect. I got to pull my daughter out.
Wow.
And deliver her, and it was just the most magical experience. And every time, bonding, big issue for me. I was so nervous. No, not a problem.
Not a problem, isn't it?
Doesn't matter if it's your biological child or not. That is your child.
Indeed.
You've spent 9 months getting ready to be that child's parent, and it's within a few weeks. Like, even if you have some bad times, it's so easy to bond with that baby.
That's beautiful.
And tell your surrogate how much they did for you, but don't. Oh, I can't think of the word. You have to hold yourself back from giving them the world.
You have, yeah. Well, as we often say, we want IPs to under promise and over deliver.
Yes, yes, but also don't like she knows how much I love her and I'll send her, very emotional texts every now and again and I'll say don't need to reply in that because that's just, me making sure you know what you've done for us and she knows. She
But
knows.
I think as a surrogate, like I'm 5 years post-birth, occasionally getting those, it's about sitting here enjoying my child and thinking, so grateful, thank you for your part, in
Yeah,
making that happen. That is the gift that surrogates do it for. It's
yeah,
that little bit of thanks that you were thinking of us. It's not $50,000. Um,
yeah.
it's the ongoing connection that we have as friends and watching you be parents. We get joy out of that.
Yes. And I've caught them watching us, especially when she was younger. Um,
Yes.
I've caught her and her partner watching us just the way they were watching us interact with our daughter. And I can see how much they get from that. And
Yes.
that's why they did it. And honestly, sending those messages to her, I think just really concretes to her what she's done for us.
Mm.
Even if we don't see each other for a couple of weeks or, a month or so, because we're all so busy,
Yep.
when we catch up, it's like no time has passed and
That's
we're going to
great.
have that connection forever.
Beautiful. So the friendship is intact. And just the couple of photos that we've shared, because we're being a bit private for your surrogate's sake. So we've got some beautiful photos. You did a maternity shoot here together. Some lots of hands on the belly, yeah?
Yes, and that was absolutely beautiful. So glad we did maternity photo shoot. Do it, do it. If
Yep.
you can do birthing photos as well, we just
Mhm.
had our own camera, no photos down below, was
Yep.
the agreement. But birthing photos are great because when your surrogate is aware again and the pregnancy's all over, she has those photos to remember the process.
Yep. 100%. That's what we say, because surrogates are out of it during birth and focused on other things. We want to look back at that. Yep. Well
And
said.
even as an intended parent, you don't remember the birth. So those photos to go back in videos are so amazing to relive.
Yes.
And for your children, when they get older, they're going to see these pictures
Mm,
and this family you've created about how important they are to you.
absolutely. And then your little girl Charlotte's a photo of you with her in your arms, and you're a mum, hey?
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's really good. And I think going through surrogacy, infertility, all of that, you have your bad days with your child and that stress, but you never take them for granted.
Yep. Well said. Well, we could keep talking for hours. There's thousands of questions I could keep asking. I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping and say to people listening, you're welcome to leave the webinar whenever you need. We might just talk for a couple more minutes and sum it all up here. I'm just trying to think if I had, no, I was going to ask the question about if there's anything you could go back and change and tell yourself any earlier or not. Um, you Something that you're passionate about is growing the community in the Northern Territory. And so there's a few of you up there. I know there's Pete and Lisa, and that's something you're really passionate about.
Yes, so it's a very small community up here. A lot of people aren't even aware of the legislation because it's so new. So
Mm.
we run a page called Surrogacy Northern Territory or
Mhm.
Northern Territory Surrogacy, and we've slowly been building it, but wanting to increase the network up here because we still have a number of IPs, intended parents up here, who are yet to find a surrogate
Yep.
and being able to help the community become aware that this is something that's legal. This is something that's actually quite easy at the end of the day. And this is something that changes your life forever.
Mm.
Absolutely changes your life. And it's the most beautiful thing.
And that's something I'm really passionate about through the work we do in Surrogacy Australia and the social media that I run and podcasts. It's about raising awareness in the hope that more women might step forward and consider being surrogates and go, oh, wow, there's these other women out there who are being surrogates. Hey, actually, yeah, I quite enjoy being pregnant and giving birth. I think I'd like to do that again. And that sense of helping somebody in an enormous way. Yes, I think you speak to my vision as well in terms of raising that awareness so that more people can do surrogacy here in Australia.
Yeah.
Mm,
And all of the, clinics are getting on board with it up here in the NT, the clinic now is on board with it.
yeah.
It's becoming much less taboo and tell people
Mm,
your story. Tell everyone your story. At my school, I'm a primary school teacher. All of the students know my story. They
yes.
see my tattoo of my surrogate and I say that's my friend who carried my daughter. They've all
Yes.
met my daughter. It's not taboo the more you talk about it and you
Yep.
never know who's going to hear your story through a friend of a friend of a friend, and suddenly you may have an offer or find someone so important in your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe in that ripple effect too, that because if you're not telling your story and giving it a chance to ripple out, then you will never benefit from those ripples, or even somebody else benefit from the ripples that you're creating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So well done for all of that beautiful advocacy. Is there anything then on your own journey that you'd like to highlight that we haven't covered so far?
Anything, Matt? I don't think so. I don't think
No,
so.
we've done really well.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is focus on therapy for yourself as the intended parents. My surrogate had an fairly easy time through the pregnancy, or she tried not to share, I guess, the really bad parts. Just, you know, it was fairly smooth sailing, but don't put your fears onto your surrogate because they carry their own fears of letting you down. The
Yes.
only thing your surrogate wants is to give you a child. They do not want to keep it. And the only thing you want is your child, but also your surrogate to be safe and healthy. So keep that at the forefront of your mind. Keep that communication and honesty open. And your job as the intended parent is to be there for your surrogate and let them know just how much they've changed your life, because that's why they're doing it. They want to change your life.
Yes.
They're the most amazing people in the world to put their body on the line to change someone else's life. And in your case, to change a stranger's life. Like, it's just the most beautiful present you can ever get.
Yeah. It's the gift of life, right? It's pretty big.
Yep.
Doesn't get much bigger than that. Um, as somebody, I've been in this community for 9 years now. Can I say, meeting somebody like you and chatting to you, the way you speak about surrogacy is, of all of the elders of the community that I've witnessed over the years, you speak their message. You are saying the similar phrases that all of the wise ones that I've witnessed in my time speak of. And it is just such a beautiful thing. You have done surrogacy so well. You should be so proud. You have a gold standard here of how surrogacy could be during it. And you're talking about your own fears and counseling and the support for your surrogate, and then you're living it. You are continuing the friendship, and so that your daughter grows up knowing I grew in her tummy, and then that's absolutely okay. It's just another way to have a family, isn't it?
We will know everything, and everyone around us will know everything. And the more you talk about things, the less taboo they become. And why is this any different to any other type of family that's created?
Mm.
Yeah. It's
Well
just
said.
love. It's just love.
Exactly right. That it takes love to make a family.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think we might sum it up there then. Well done. What a fantastic webinar. And I think, yeah, there's so many gems in there, particularly about the journey that you've been on to get here. And I think you'll resonate with a lot of people. But then also, even if it's two guys listening, it's also that the journey and understanding that the surrogate might have some medical issues as well, and in terms of how to navigate your fears about how she's managing her pregnancy and all of that juggle. So yeah.
And ultimately, choosing a surrogate, who you can trust, will manage their pregnancy and their body in the best way they know, because you don't have control over that. You only have control over yourself.
So true, right? And that it's very hard for us all to let go of control. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as your values align, at the start when you're dating, make sure all of that, those difficult questions are talked about fair. Don't agree with somebody else just to get a surrogate. Just be yourself and find the surrogate who matches you.
Oh, this is great. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We hope you found this useful. Head to our website and check out dates for the future. The last two for the year, I've got a team. So the surrogate's on one, and then the dad is the other. They're the Tasmanian team. Joel is a single dad from Tasmania, the first one single dad down there to do it, and his surrogate Jess is on the other fortnight. But if you've still got lots of unanswered questions or would like them answered privately, consider joining SASS to be connected with a mentor so you can have your questions answered in a one-on-one setting. I like to say, let's change the world one conversation at a time so we can educate more people about how surrogacy works. It can be very lonely and overwhelming in the beginning and during the journey, but there is plenty of support in the village if you go looking for it. And as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. And in the case of surrogacy, it takes a village to make a child. So welcome to the village, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kelsey and Aaron.
Thank you very much
So-
for having us, and thank you for listening.
Of course, keep your eye out for when the YouTube recording, everybody, and the podcast recording of this in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good night.
Bye.